Today on the Retro Zoo Super Show, the last hurrah for strategy guides.
Live from Kakariko Village. Broadcast throughout the Retroverse, transmitted to the real world via a maze of wires connecting a Super Nintendo to a Wii, to a Wi-Fi network, and finally to the Internet. The Techno Funk Boy presents the Retro Zoo Super Show. Now here are your hosts, Kai and Steven.
Thank you for tuning in to the Retro Zoo Super Show. I am your host for today, Kai. I really appreciate you joining me today. I am flying solo. We are kind of preparing for Christmas over here, and as you know, for Christmas holidays every year, Stephen is working extra hours, trying to bring in a little extra pay, and so we will be hearing back from him in January. But not to worry. We have plenty to talk about in the meantime. That we will definitely not miss him at all. I say jokingly, kind of, but no. We actually have a lot of really cool episodes lined up for you, and so please do stay tuned throughout the Christmas season. I believe that we're going to be able to get to have an episode every week during December, and so please hang on. If you have not already joined our Discord server, if you are on Discord and if you like gaming, then you should be. It actually took me a while to kind of figure out Discord and why it's as cool as it really is, but it definitely is, and so it's actually Steven who got me into Discord, and we were going to record some episodes over the internet and told me to get it, that we could use that, and then I had it loaded on my machine for a long time and never used it at all. But please, if you are on Discord, or would like to be on Discord, then do check out the link to our private Discord server in the show notes. We will keep you apprised of any goings on there, as far as when episodes are going to be launched, when and where we are recording live. We are at least attempting to stream all of our recordings on Twitch. That might vary a little bit during December, but we are making that attempt, so we do hope that you will check that out. So Discord link is in the server. So I am nearly a month late on this particular story, but it was my attention was drawn to it by another show, and it is in the where I'm reading this off Wired right now from the middle of last month that Prima Books, which is I really got the big name, I think, in strategy guide publication here recently, has announced that it's going to be closing shop. The books that they have announced will be published. The stuff they have out right now will be will be, be supported and distributed and all that. But in March of 2019, the final office is closing. It is shutting down. And this is, this is a big thing. I grew up during the rise of like the published strategy guide to where, when it started out, it was, people would just get like, popular games and publish these unofficial guides or some collection of codes and stuff where, really the people who were, it really is the family members of gamers would pick these things up, and they're like, hey, this has a bunch of cheat codes and strategies for a number of different games that my nephew or son or daughter, whoever the case may be, plays, and we should get this to them. And that would be really nice. And they were typically some really mundane tips, really nothing of interest. But there was a little bit of money to be made then. And that kind of transitioned us into, the era of like official guides and such. And that's been going on for a very long time. And, after a while, we started seeing the same publishers on nearly all of them. Mostly, and I got a stack of them here right beside me. This was a big one for a while. It was the Brady games, and I think that actually was swallowed up by Prima not too long ago. But Prima was the other one, and that's been the really big one for a while. And so it's shutting its doors next year. It really is kind of an end of an era. And that's going to tie into our topic today, which actually is strategy guides, and in particular, the worst strategy guide ever. But this sort of thing was inevitable. It's like, I started looking through like my strategy guides, because I've kept them all, and I just have a stack of them. And you see them just gradually get longer. This is okay. So like here I have, and I'll talk about more detail, like Ninja Gaiden 2. And this is like every single map, everything about the game, really big type. And it's like 70 pages. And then as games got bigger and more complicated, and the 2D maps became 3D maps and all of that, then they just got longer and longer and longer. I didn't grab my Final Fantasy 12 one, but that thing is a beast. And they're like printing it with the smallest type imaginable, where there's cases where like, so I really had to do this. I could not at all read one section of it, and I didn't have any glasses nearby where I could magnify that or anything like that. So what I did instead was I took a picture with my phone of the text I was trying to read, and then on my phone I blew it up so I could actually read the stupid thing. But that's like the smallest type imaginable, and the thing is hundreds of pages long. And these things are typically full color, glossy pages. It's like you get like a 22-page comic book with full color, glossy pages. And the thing is running $5 now, and so you start doing a 400-page book like that. It's expensive to print. And with so many people getting their tips and stuff online, it was only a matter of time. Then you have the added problem of DLC. It's like, you publish a strategy guide of something, and it's out of date very quickly. And even with updates, some tricks that worked before don't work anymore, or things that didn't work before work now. And so I certainly don't blame them for shutting down. I think that the time of the strategy guides, this is kind of getting to the point where, I mean, it just the natural course of things is that it needs to close. But it is something that I think that at least I'm going to mourn, because I've told this story before, and I'll retell it briefly. The reason I got into JRPGs in the first place was partially because of strategy guides. And I wish I had it. I think I do have it somewhere. But it was the Nintendo Power Final Fantasy strategy guide. And it was in the same series as this Ninja Gaiden 2-1, where, I mean, this was the first time I really was starting to see, kind of official strategy guides. Look, this has a poster in it. I didn't even know that. I was always very careful not to take out posters. I was one of those weird kids that would leave posters in magazines and stuff because I didn't want to ruin the magazine, even though I really wanted the poster. But now I've gotten over that, and so I might be digging into this again. But this was 1990 that this came out, and it was that same series. And so I had already played Dragon Warrior at my cousin's house, and just fell in love with it. But soon thereafter, that strategy guide for Final Fantasy hit my doorstep, and I didn't. Final Fantasy 1 wasn't even the first Final Fantasy I played or owned. I owned 2 or Super Nintendo 4 first, and I think I even got 3 before 1. But I got 1 eventually, and I pulled out that strategy guide. But I read that thing cover to cover, and the fact that there were charts in it, tables in it that of armor and levels, and this is just fascinated me. The Dragon Warrior, for those who got my cousin got the free Dragon Warrior giveaway from Nintendo Power, and for those who remember that, they came with all sorts of great stuff, including a pretty detailed strategy guide, and it was short. Dragon Warrior is not a complicated game, but it too had these tables, and it's just fascinating to me that I didn't know that games could really do that, because what I was used to was arcades and platformers and sports games, right? And so I really started getting into JRPGs just looking at those charts. And so I've got a lot of these, and I kind of wanted to pick at a couple of them. This was the first one that I remember getting, and it's not even really a strategy guide. But this is 89, and the publisher company is Publications International Limited, which sounds as generic as all get out. But this is Nintendo Strategies: How to Win at, and a number of different games. But this is the most generic thing ever. So each game has two facing pages, and that's it. There's nothing else to this. And so and most of it's pictures. So for those who are watching on Twitch, this is the Mega Man section right here. You can see most of her pictures. It's pretty cool. I mean, full color glossy thing. This was hard to. This sort of thing was not all that common in '89. But so it's got some interesting stuff to it, right? It's got each humanoid has a weakness, and it's important you find the weakness of each enemy. Okay, that's generic, but you don't have to attack the humanoids in any particular order, but you're most likely to complete the game if you start with Gutsman. Your next target should be Cutman, Bombman, and Iceman. Then use Iceman's weapon to defeat Fireman. Use Fireman's weapon to defeat Electman. And so on and so forth. So this is actually some pretty good information if it's not generic, right? You've got some more just bewildering games in here, like Bases Loaded. All right, so I adore Bases Loaded. I played the snot out of that game. I really did. But, besides just being an overview of the game, which is just regurgitating the instruction manual, it's like, oh, look, there's this many teams and that sort of thing. It's like, but to play this game well, you must spend some time practicing your moves. So that this is the tip and trick for this game, and especially for Nintendo, it did have a very complex, like, pitching and batting, little segment. And so part of it, it's pretty advanced in that, and you really do need to learn how to deal with the computer pitcher and how to read the ball and that sort of thing. But this is the kind of thing that we have in here. And every page has like this extra bold in red tip, and the tip for Zelda 2 is get extra power-ups. All right, so this isn't ridiculously helpful. It does not have the price on it, like pre-printed on it. It doesn't even have a barcode, actually. And so that's the kind of quality we were getting on this. I have no idea how much this cost back in the day, but I don't know that I necessarily learned that much from it. Going forward, I mentioned Nintendo Power's first few, and these are really kind of, they're almost magazine style. They're not staple bound, they're perfect bound, but these kind of 70-page strategy guides like Ninja Gaiden 2 or Final Fantasy that was really the first kind of foray into like really deep strategy mapping type of things that I had run across. They drastically improved on their next wave of these. So, I have I think there were 4 of these as well, but like the one that I just grabbed was the NES Game Atlas. So this was actually pretty impressive because it tackled a lot of games, but, because the pages were were bigger and there were more pages per game, you actually got a lot more mapping done in it. So so original Mega Man has 4 pages, but in those 4 pages, it completely maps out it looks like all of the stages. Mega Man 2 has the next, looks like possibly 6 pages. And again, we're seeing maps of every single level. So they're a little hard to see, especially at my age, but they're there. And so this is really, really cool. It does have some hints along the way, but this is an atlas. This is mostly here for the maps. The more hints come later, but it does have hints. So in Mega Man 3, it has this little paragraph on Magnet Man. Work against Magnet Man's magnetic pull and fire when he relaxes. Then slide under him as he jumps. You'll collect magic missiles. Okay, so 3 sentences. It's not that complicated, but it gets the point across. You have the basic, first of all, you have a map of a stage. You have basic strategies to beat them. And so this, I got a lot of use out of this particular book. Because of the thoroughness of its maps. Super Mario Brothers 3 actually takes up a huge segment of this book. And all three of the NES Marios are in here. But Mario 3 is just ridiculous. Like, all of these levels are mapped out. And they just go for page after page after page. The number of levels in that game is insane. And they're all pretty short, but still. So, like, when you get to Koopa's Castle, I'm seeing, like, so many different hints and tricks and, just little notes here and there. It's really good. It's the same thing, Zelda's in here, the maps of each of the dungeons, Zelda 2, etc. and so on. So that's that's some pretty good stuff. So that kind of brought me through, into Super Nintendo era where just those, I remember a friend of mine had an unofficial, Final Fantasy, SNES Final Fantasy 3, guide, and it had some useful stuff in it. It also had, I think, if I remember right, it had some stuff that was just wrong that happens sometimes. So, but, I didn't have that many, guides for SNES games. I remember one of the Nintendo Power books was for Super Mario World, and that was really cool. But like Final Fantasy 2, 3 didn't have them. Breath of Fire, that sort of thing. The one exception to that was that Earthbound came with a strategy guide for those who remember and bought it new. And I remember them using that as a selling point. It's like, hey guys, this game is so big, you're going to need this help. And it was fantastic. And that was the moment that I kind of opened my eyes that, hey, I can actually get these outside of Nintendo Power. Because I mean, the mentality of, the gamer in the 90s, especially, one who was on the Nintendo side of the console wars, was that you needed to, first of all, you have to have Nintendo Power, and that's pretty much all you need. Just collect all your Nintendo Powers and it'll eventually answer all your questions. But that kind of opened the door to other guides and that sort of thing. I think the next one I got was for Myst, and I enjoyed that one a lot because I would bang my head against the puzzles in that game until my head started to hurt, and it wasn't being fun anymore. And then I would consult the guide. I was able to figure out most of them, and that so I really enjoyed that game. The one for Riven I used actually too much, and same with Exile. But the one for Myst, I enjoyed very much having that there. Moving forward into PlayStation, once I got to PlayStation, I was playing almost exclusively role-playing games, and I would very rarely buy anything that I didn't have the guide for. So I bought Saga Frontier. I think it was on sale, and I was waiting on another game and I'd seen an ad for it and it looked interesting. And so I got it. And I know some of you are groaning already, but I could not figure out that game to save my life. And the game was new then. This was before, anybody was posting, playthroughs on YouTube or anything. And I probably didn't have the connection to watch it, even if they did. But I couldn't figure out how to do the game at all. It was bad. It was I couldn't figure out where to go at all. And so I snagged the strategy guide, and, let's see, did I bring it over here? I may not have. I know I had it over in the other room. I may not have brought it over here, but I got the strategy guide just because I couldn't figure out what to do. And the strategy guide didn't help me at all. I got 0% farther with the strategy guide. And it was the first one that I experienced that was not good. And I don't know that it was necessarily the strategy guide that was no good, or it was just simply the game. I'm very curious. I should watch a playthrough of that game just so I can give it a fair shake. And in that way, I can give it another swipe. I'm almost certain that I'm doing something very minor that's wrong. And that if I correct it, then, everything will be fine. But I have no idea what that thing is. And so I really, one day I'll plug it in and see if I can find my way through that game a little better than I did. But that is not. I mean, look, and I've gotten some bad strategy guys since then. Like, the Final Fantasy 12 one in particular is like, part of it I use, for hints and stuff for the game. And then like certain aspects of the game, I just automatically go online because I know the strategy guide is garbage. Like, okay. So one really good example for that one is, the hunts in the game. So like in the game, if you haven't played it, the hunts are like, you can, people will hire you to go hunt this epic beast that's blocking their way and being annoying, and you go fight it and kill it and you get all these things. But like the hunt section of that book has got to be the smallest font I've ever seen in my life. And that was the part that I was mentioning. I took a picture of and, just try to, see it better. And it was finally like, just forget it. I can't read this. Let me just look online for that. And so that's one of those things. It's like, I know they were trying to save space because that thing is massive. There's so much to do in that game. This thing is massive. And again, printing costs are not cheap when you're doing, quality, full color, glossy pages. And so I know that they were just trying to find some way to cut down the cost of that thing. And so tiny print was one of the solutions, but, that is not the worst strategy guide I've ever seen. But there are some that like, I have, there's been some games that I like try to get some hint online, and it's just, I can't understand it without the maps and stuff, looking at it and pointing directions. And then sometimes the strategy guide itself is just garbage. I end up going to GameFAQs.com or something like that. But that's not the one I want to talk about today. The one I want to talk about was this very, very special one that, I was actually doing some research on this, going, I need to do a story on the worst strategy guide ever made. And so I started doing some research online, and I found a Kotaku article called "The Worst Strategy Guide Ever Made," and so I was like, "Well, okay, well, at least people agree with me." So we're going to tackle that when we come back from our break. But in the meantime, let's jump to our break, and we will be right back. Hey, it's Kai here. We recently finished our latest EP, Quest of the Dragon Warrior. It's an electronic tribute to Dragon Warrior and the amazing music that game gave us. We're really excited about how this music came out, and we want you to have it for free. If you go to technofunkboy.com/Dragon Warrior and sign up for our weekly newsletter, you'll get the songs to download and keep for free forever. That's technofunkboy.com/Dragon Warrior, or check the show notes for a link. And we are back. So let's set the stage a little bit for Final Fantasy IX. I have actually in my hand the strategy guide for Final Fantasy VII, and it's certainly for the time, especially going into the Super. I'm sorry, not the Super Nintendo, the PlayStation era of Final Fantasies. This was a big game. I'm looking at it now, and it's like this font is ginormous, and there's a ton of pictures, and it's still only 220 pages. So I'm sure the complexity of this game just is tiny compared to like 12. things got a little bit more complicated. But like, I can feel the difference when we got to Final Fantasy VIII. It's 267 pages, and there's a lot more in here. One particular page I'm looking at right here, where one page has 15 pictures. They're numbered because it's a series of steps that you need to take for a quest. But 15 pictures on a particular page. The side quests and stuff is half this thing. I just see it. The pictures are getting smaller. There's more text. It's still readable. It's still large text, but we're getting more complicated as we go. And then we get to Final Fantasy IX, which is actually a very light book. And it's like, well, that's kind of weird, and it's also a little bit cheaper. So both of these, both of the prior Final Fantasy books were $15. Final Fantasy VIII one boasts 450 full color maps. Just noticed that. I just want to bring that up. Final Fantasy VII is 350. So a little bit to note about the difference in size. Final Fantasy IX one does not boast that. It says it has a detailed walkthrough and some of the side quests and stuff. But then it has this thing on the side. It says, prepare to take your Final Fantasy experience one step further with PlayOnline.com. This strategy guide is the key to accessing a vast amount of additional resources for this epic adventure. And it tells you the stuff that's not actually in this book at all, but on their website. So they cut the price by $2. This is a $13 book, and it's barely 200 pages. So how can this be, you might ask, because you might have played this game before, and there's a lot there. There's a lot to this game. Well, it's because the strategy guide is incomplete, and famously so. What the story is behind this is Square was trying to kind of launch this PlayOnline.com website, and they were trying to get some traffic in. And so about that same time, Final Fantasy IX was coming out, and they were like, hey, here's an idea. Why don't we connect the people, the readers of the strategy guide into the website, and that way, we can get we can show them around PlayOnline.com. We can get them going on that, and in the meantime, they'll have their strategy. It's like a win-win, because now we can make this book 100 pages shorter than it otherwise should have been, drastically cutting the production costs, drastically cutting the weight and the amount of pages and ink needed. And we can even make it cheaper because of all that. And then we get people on the website. And so, all right. I'm already going to call foul a little bit on it because, hey, I just spent, okay, yeah, it's not $15, but I still spent $13 on this thing. And you're directing me toward a website instead of having it here. I mean, now one of the advantages to having a strategy guide, I mean, besides having the maps there, I mean, because you'll probably remember, it's like, all the game facts were done as text documents, and so if there's going to be a map, you had to do it with ASCII art, right? You had to draw it out with all the symbols on your keyboard with little underscore and the vertical line, and just making out maps like that, and they weren't great. They were certainly helpful. They weren't very helpful, and they took a lot of time. Whereas having it in front of you, it's like you can see the picture of the thing that you're trying to do. But one of the advantages to this is actually having it where you play, because most of us at the time had our computer probably in the bedroom or something like that, and had our console in a different spot. And I'm sure there are people who had had them right side by side, but not many of us, and I certainly didn't. And we didn't have in like the early 2000s, we didn't have smartphones where we can browse the internet from our phone or tablets. Most of us didn't have laptops, and most of us didn't have a wireless, connection in the house, even if we did have a laptop. And so, a lot of times getting the strategy guide online was more trouble than it was worth. It was almost worth $15 to have it there and not have to print out, an entire file, text file or anything like that. And so that's a lot of the reasons a lot of us did that instead of just downloading, walkthroughs and game facts from online. But here was Squaresoft trying to get us to do both, where you bought the book, but you still need to go online in order to use the book. And this is what I mean. So, for those who are watching on the stream, these little boxes. In the margin of nearly every page in this book, there are one or more boxes. These little blue boxes with the PlayOnline logo, a keyword, and a category. And it would tell you, hey, if you want this information, go on PlayOnline and use this keyword, and it will help you. So I just opened a page, and on one page it has 4, and on the next page it has 3. Now, not every page has these. I ran across several pages that had 0 earlier, but some of them have a lot. So, AT is okay. So this one is the keyword is VATE1. The ATEs in Trino play an important role. To find out how to view them, go on PlayOnline. ATE NAM7. During the card tournament, a hidden AT will trigger a special event later. See PlayOnline for details. A special item. If you're hunting some rare cards, Hip Hall may be able to help out. See PlayOnline for more details. So here's one. There's 2 facing pages that only have 1. But so like I said, this is not an every single page one, but it's darn close. This one has 2 on each pages. And this is a boss battle, right? All right. So battle tactics, they have 3 small points here. Then, for more boss strategy, go to PlayOnline. I mean, this is literally why. I mean, literally why we buy these things is for maps, for especially boss strategies, and side quests. But they dump all of this stuff onto the website. This is okay. I just passed one page. That was the first page with 0 on them. Quinna can use a couple of useful abilities in this area. Make sure you visit PlayOnline to find out what he can learn. You can dig up a few good items here. Visit PlayOnline for an extra scoop. More help on the Lanny boss fight. Go to PlayOnline. So you get the point. This whole thing. It's like, okay, so, I mean, if y'all remember like the early days of the internet, you remember like the AOL, like every commercial had like this AOL keyword thing. And I never had AOL, so I didn't know exactly how that worked. But like every commercial, instead of a website, they had an AOL keyword thing until that kind of fell out of style. And then they went to websites. But, that's when it's like you bought a list of AOL keywords with this thing. People were immediately furious about this. I mean, and it's not the fact that it was just online, but it's the fact that we paid money so we didn't have to go online for this. And that was the thing. It's like, if I wanted to go online for this information, I can get it for free. You know, I don't have to buy something to tell me where to look online. And so I did this at the beginning of the game. I would actually do this, and that died out like nearly instantly, because like I was saying before, my console was not where my internet was. At the time, they were actually in separate rooms. I had, in various places that I've lived, I've had my computer somewhat near my console, but they've never been like right side by side where I would be clicking away at the computer and then checking, then playing the console at the same time. But in this case, they were in completely different rooms. And so I would go and I would look up something, and a lot of times it was just a waste, or I was like, okay, well, that was great. Was that really worth walking across the apartment for? Probably not. And so immediately I stopped doing that. And in this stupid book, it's like, it gives me chills every time I think about this strategy guide. I don't think about, I'd like to flip through here and look at the maps again, or the drawings, or the character design, because the game is so cool. And it really is. This is actually my favorite PlayStation era Final Fantasy. I think this was an exceptionally good game. But it's like, I can pick through these other games like I did earlier today. And I can just flip through them and enjoy looking at the maps, and enjoy looking at the characters, and enjoy all these things, and just kind of sit back and reminisce. I have that feeling of nostalgia wash over me. And I do that. I do that. I have all my books here now by my computer where we record, and where I stream and such. And, I'll grab one, not for any tips or tricks, but just to take a look. I don't grab this one. Every time I see those stupid blue little boxes, it makes me mad. But that's the thing. So the kicker in all of this is there's no playonline.com anymore. They shut the website down. And so what I have here is a list of keywords that don't go anywhere. And have become truly worthless. And so, it's like, now we've gotten to the point where it's like, the twisting of the knife. It's like, when we got the book, that was the stabbing in the back, but then the website went down, and that's when they gave it a nice little twist. So that is it. That is the worst strategy guide I've ever come across. It is, I gotta be honest, like the passing of this era, it is, is bringing up a little melancholy feeling for me. It's like, as a primarily retro gamer and a probably exclusively retro gamer, I am eternally living in the past. Where I'll still keep buying the strategy guys used, I guess, as I get new games, but, I see these things that I loved, growing up, passing, and I can get a little sad about that. Now, that's not to say I think that strategy guys should stick around. As I said before, I think that model is has passed its time for usefulness. I think by this point that the guides would be too big, too expensive, and they would be changed at the next update. They'd be out of date. And so, simply because I enjoy these things and I enjoy reminiscing about them doesn't mean that I necessarily think that this industry should keep going. I think that this presents an opportunity though for those publishers who are publishing retro style games to tap into yet another area of nostalgia of the strategy guides. And how that comes about, who knows? It's like I've run across a lot of these retro collections and stuff that are trying to emulate that old feeling in one way or another, presenting us a scene of the early 90s bedroom with cartridges and thrown about and such like that. And so maybe your own strategy guide done in this style, well, not the Final Fantasy IX style, please don't, but done in the style of the old strategy guides can be there, even if it's digital. But I think that opens up an opportunity for y'all. The retro style game has remained popular, and this is yet another area where you can kind of tie into that experience that we used to have. So yeah, that's it. That is the worst strategy guide that I've come across, and I hope you enjoy it. If you ever do see a copy of this sitting about, let it be. It will provide you no usefulness whatsoever. In the meantime, do thank you for tuning in. We really do appreciate you tuning in each and every week. I've been absolutely thrilled being able to interact with all of you, either in comment boxes, on social media, or in Discord especially. So if you are so inclined, please do check out that link to Discord in the show notes page, and we will catch you next week.
The Retro Zoo Super Show is brought to you by the Techno Funk Boy. Follow us on Twitter at Techno Funk Boy, on Facebook at the Techno Funk Boy, and sign up for our email list at technofunkboy.com. Also look for us on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon for music. If you are so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast catcher. If you are not so inclined, you are obviously some sort of villain trying to conquer the world. Unowned music and gameplay clips are used for educational and critical purposes. Thank you for listening, keep gaming, and wish you have responsibilities that need to be done at this time. the indie game leader.